Well, today I'm going to demonstrate a homebrew transmitter that I did not build. It was built by a vocational student many years ago, and he built it with some very good parts. Very good parts. He modeled it after the Globe Chief. He modeled it after the Globe Chief, which I have a manual of, and this transmitter is very similar to it, but it's not exactly the same, and it definitely does not work perfectly, although it does work well. I have made contacts with it on 20 meters, 40 meters, and 80 meters. It is a CW transmitter. And I'm going to tune it up and show you how it works. I have used it with a VFO, a little less stable with a VFO, and I have used it with some crystals. And there it's a little bit easier to predict and how it's going to work. So I'm going to tune it up, show you how it works. It puts out almost 100 watts on some frequencies and not as much on other frequencies. So let's take a look at a homebrew Globe Chief. I do want to sell it. It is built with some very, very high quality parts, as you will see. Well, it has a couple of meters on it, and one meter shows grid current and the other meter shows plate current. It's run using two 807s. I don't want to touch them because there's very high voltage on them. Actually, there's about 1,000 volts on them. Under load, about 700 volts. This control adjusts the drive over here. This allows you to dip the plate current, and this is the load. And I've never been too sure what this is for. There's some capacitors added on here, and I have used it with the VFO to get a little bit more power. And of course, this is a relatively cheap and inexpensive power meter, but I have in the past shown it to be fairly accurate, although it does tend to read a little bit high, maybe 10 to 15 watts high. So kind of keep that in mind. And this transmitter is now hooked to a dummy load. I am using a crystal of 7.152. That's 40 meters, and of course it doesn't seem to drift too much. So let's try it and see what happens. Okay, I have previously tuned it up. There's the grid current right there. It is peaked up right away, and our plate current is about 200 mils. So 200 mils at about 700 watts. That's about 140 watts input power, and if you look over here, that's giving us about 100 watts out. Now I think that meter is reading a little high, so I'm going to say it's giving us about 100 watts, about 80 watts out. But if I want to tune it up, let me put it back to its normal position here, and I will tune it up. Now there's nothing. Let's see if we can. Okay, and now let's add a little more. There we go. That's giving us about 20 watts, and then we tune the load, and that says over 100 watts. I have a feeling it's not really over 100 watts, but I think it's closer to 80. And you can see the SWR is minimal because we are using a dummy load. So let's try it on another band. Okay, let's try it on 15 meters. I've taken this crystal of 7.152 and I'm going to triple it. That's going to take us out of the band, but then we are on a dummy load. So it's going to be on 21.477 approximately. But I'm here to show you that it does work on 15 meters. So I'm tripling it, but it is out of the band. I don't have that kind of a crystal to keep us within the band. Okay, so we've got a little bit of power out. Let me tune it for a peak. There's our peak. And then look for a dip. Okay, and then add a little more juice with the load. And we're at about 200 mils. Once again, we're about 200 mils. And it looks like 90 watts. Looks like about 90 watts output there. So it does seem to work okay on that band. Now, I have used it with a Heathkit VFO. That gets to be a little tricky. This switch, by the way, turns it from crystal to VFO. You plug the VFO in here, and on the back it does have an accessory jack that will fit the Heathkit VF1 perfectly. And I have used it with the Heathkit VF1. And there's the VF1, what you can see of it. And, well, let's hold that up here. Here's the VF1. Now, with the VFO, Heathkit VFO, it's a lot trickier. And I found some problems trying. I can use it, and I have used it on 80, 40, and 20 meters with the VFO. But you have to be very careful with the tuning, because I have found out that if you're not careful with the tuning, you could be putting out on a. This will read good output power, but it won't be on the frequency you think it is. It could be on 12 megahertz or some other frequency. So I use the frequency counter to make sure when I load it up that it is actually working on the frequency that I want it to. But it is a little iffy on those bands, on other bands when you're using the VFO. It's a bit of it's a bit tricky tuning it to get it on the frequency that you actually want to be on. Okay, I now have put in a crystal for 3.7 something, approximately 3.72, and let's try that. We'll load that up, see how that works. Okay, almost no power there, but we've got to get the drive, tune the drive circuit up. There we go. And now let's add a little more. That's giving us about 70 watts. There's our dip. And we'll add a little more here. And that's about 80 watts. I'm guessing, oh, there we go. We tune it up a little bit better. And about 200 mils over here at about 700 watts. That's 140 watts to get you about 100 watts out. Figuring that the meter's a little off. So we'll call it 20, about 80 watts. Remember, it works fine on a crystal, not so fine with a Heathkit VFO, and it may be me and my ability, the way I matched it in there and hooked it up. But I do want to sell it, and if you're interested in buying it, please look on eBay. I hope to put a link on this on eBay. So, this is K1OIK. See you later.